Aloha mai kako, you are watching Hawaii Political Reporter.
Aloha and welcome to Hawaii Political Reporter. Thanks for watching. Tonight, state news and state policies that cost jobs and hurt working people. Then we focus on national economics and how the working and poor people are being shafted by the government. We end with a focus on the demise of the working class's prosperity and the country's financial strength. Central banks and the Federal Reserve Chairman. Hang on for a ride you will not forget as Chris McGraw takes us up with Helicopter Ben. In state news on the Hawaii Free Press, February 24th edition, even lipstick can't disguise PLDC look-alike proposals. For instance, there is Senate Bill 215, which creates a public-private partnership authority, the PPPA. The bill wants to create a partnership agency to collaborate with all state agencies and private sector entities to deliver services more effectively. The good works to be done would include energy generation. The hook to getting county support was to say that counties would be allowed to waive zoning land use and permitting requirements on any projects. Skipping down, and again, this is worth well reading, especially if you've been following the PLDC. The complete article is on the Hawaii Free Press. Here is the line that sets off alarms. It would allow development of any concept proposed by an applicant that would result in revenue for the department, even if the concept requires legislative changes to existing statutes or regulations. That strange phase means it would allow or encourage something beyond the law. I can't think of any other subject than gambling, said Nakata, who was against legalizing gambling. This is not a commentary on gambling or anything else like this. This is another obvious approach, okay, to take care of the state at the people's expense and to empower agencies, again, against the people's will. Nothing against government except it should be serving the people, not controlling them. Moving on to another article in the Hawaii Free Press, we come up to Could Soda Tax Shutter Hawaii's Only Can Maker? From the No Hawaii Beverage Tax. This is dated Thursday, February 21, again on the Hawaii Free Press. This week we wanted to share with you another side of the debate that isn't always considered, the unintended consequences of the beverage tax. The Ball Corporation, one of the pillars of Hawaii's manufacturing industry, is the only manufacturer of metal cans in the islands. They opened in Hawaii in 1979 and have been providing good local jobs ever since. The company employs 45 people, and the beverage tax places their jobs directly at risk. If the beverage tax passes, the Ball Corporation would likely have to shut down. That's 45 people with good jobs who would be out of work. You know, like people who live in zones and areas that were residential and having industry dropped on them, people working at honest work, okay, you know, in this economy, can we please give them a little consideration? You know, just pulling these bills and, you know, putting these people out of work and their families, it's ridiculous. You know, I mean, we need a little consideration of individuals instead of just the state's needs and desires and those in power who are on a mission, okay, really a power and control mission, you know, to what pleases their ends. Since the Ball Corporation, it's basically just one of the unintended consequences of the beverage tax. Lo Kalapa, president of the Hawaii Tax Foundation, wrote a great article recently that urged the media to really consider the full impact of the legislative actions. Individually, each of these proposals seems harmless, a penny here, a dime there. It doesn't seem like much, but then together, and the families will be hit with a substantial whack to their pocketbooks next year. This is so true. And they say we couldn't agree, and I couldn't agree more. And this is not even a commentary on the tax. I hardly know about it. Okay, this is just one of these things. Can the government please look at the cost-benefit analysis and please consider the consequences of what can be done to working people and their families and to those simply trying to live, in other cases, you know, on their land as they purchased and wanted, you know, to enjoy without having a whole bunch of industrial stuff dropped on them. This is just another in a continuing series of obvious scorn, actually, from this government towards the rights of individuals and the rights for their economic prosperity and freedom. Okay, now we go to another one, and this is even against the union, a very powerful, you know, force in this state. I got to give one thing to the governor and some of these people. I mean, you know, I mean, they've got big ones. They really do. This is just incredible what they're trying to pull with this one. And, you know, I am and have studied energy very substantially. I know exactly what you can do, you know, I'm in the alternative energy business. But transportation fuels are a very difficult situation. What we can do in fixed stationary, you know, applications is one thing, but mobile fuel is really quite another. But not even getting into the bill again, as we read here, you'll see the primary point, and I agree with them, is that basically people these are the conservatives essentially, and saying, and the libertarian in this case here, saying that yes, all parties need to be represented, including the union. It's fair enough. They are certainly individuals and voters and constituents, and they need to have a fair shot at having their voice represented. So this is the Hawaii Free Press. Tuesday, February 18th, the governor excludes the union from the refinery task force. Tesoro Refinery closure will mean higher prices and an energy crunch. Wow, we have a story coming up on that on the economy soon, but it's already self-evident. So anyways, it goes into Hawaii is unique among Pacific Island jurisdictions because it is self-sufficient in liquid fuels. The two refineries supply just about all the state's needs. Because of this, gasoline and diesel prices are close to $1 per gallon lower than in other parts of the Pacific that use the U.S. dollar. And anyways, going on, national security could be affected. The U.S. Navy depends on Tesoro for about 70% of the fuel it uses. I'm totally anti-war, but, at the same time, I'm very much pro-defense, true defense. And, this is one of the things that a lot of people don't realize in World War II. If the Japanese had hit our petroleum reserves when they came to Pearl Harbor, forget the battleships and everything, we would have been out of the war. We would have lost it. That would have been at least 5 years to redo that fuel. Fuel is absolutely essential, and, this is gigantic ramifications of what's happening here. And this is nothing disrespectful against environmentalists and your belief in global warming and such. I'm personally all for biofuels when they're practical and stuff, but this really needs to be considered and balanced here. And so anyways, all of this is important because if Tesoro Refinery closes, our state will have to import more than half of the petroleum products it uses. If that happens, prices are almost certain to rise to a rate much higher to those typical in the Pacific Islands where there are no refineries. So this is a buck, they're saying, a buck more per gallon. Not cheap. Okay, some people say natural gas will be a solution to our problems, but Hawaii does not have the gas terminals it would need to import this fuel. Our state's power plants would need years to get ready for the gas, not to mention the vehicles themselves. And I've studied this too, and and there are lubricants and things in the gasoline that are necessary for the engine. Going to a natural gas is not a direct, especially on older vehicles, it is not a direct changeover. Other people say that wind and geothermal energy will be enough, but these technologies are even many, many more years away. This is totally fallacious. There is no way at this point, and I'll say this again, no way, and I am qualified to make this statement, that they can take care of, you're not going to fly a plane on wind energy, or you're not going to sail a ship on geothermal. It's just not going to happen. What you could do if you wanted to do it is take nuclear and the hydrogen byproduct, but that's obviously a no-go in this state. So that means that Tesoro closes its doors. Hawaii will face an energy crunch that could take several years to recover. Now, moving on to part 2 of this, USW urges Governor Abercrombie to include union on committee examining Tesoro Refinery closure in Kapolei, Hawaii. Hey, yes, Governor, please. Give everybody a fair chance. And these again, more working people that you're giving the shaft to, let's just be straight here. You're giving them the shaft. You're not considering them. So the USW represents the majority of the workers at refinery. Pittsburgh, February 19, 2013. The United Steelworkers Union today called on Hawaii Governor Neil Abercrombie to include the USW on a committee being formed to examine the closure at Tesoro's Kapolei refinery and its impact on the state. The committee will also examine coordinating efforts to save the refinery and other issues related to Hawaii's economy. We believe that it would be a huge mistake for your administration to exclude the United Steelworkers from this process, wrote USW International Vice President Gary Beavers and USW District 12 Director Robert LaVentura. The USW represents some 250 production and maintenance workers at the Kapolei refinery who are likely to use their jobs if the facility is shut down. Another 250 people and their families and their kids, hey, you don't matter. Please, Governor and people in government, please consider all the ramifications and the human beings that pay their price when you do these things. These are not consequenceless, Okay, and we're going to be moving on to economics in a moment. And now moving on to some economic and related news. Senators got a 154-page Fiscal Cliff bill 3 minutes before voting on it. Now let's see where this great intelligence study in this bill leads us to. Fiscal Cliff deal, $1 in spending cuts for every $41 in tax increases. And of course, it's only going to be those rich, bad people who are going to end up paying that. I mean, there's so many of them, they're so plentiful that, we can sustain the whole economy on that, right? Wrong. Workers making $30,000 will take a bigger hit on their pay than those earning $500,000 under the new fiscal deal. Surprise! Every time they spend, the average person gets hurt. It's not the rich people. Even if they tax them, it still wouldn't be enough. And they do tax them. Obviously, the honest ones, certainly more than enough. So, Curl, Obama supporters shocked and angry at new tax increases. Now, I can't resist this one. As you may know, I am not a Democrat nor a Republican here, but sometimes, as all parties and all people have their fun stuff. It says, analysis opinion. Sometimes watching a Democrat learn something is wonderful, like seeing the family dog finally sit down and stay at your command. With President Obama back in office and his life-saving Fiscal Cliff bill jammed through Congress at New Year, has brought a surprising turn of events for his sycophantic supporters. What happened to my Social Security withholdings? My paycheck just went up, a poster wrote on the liberal website Democrat Underground. My paycheck just went down by an amount that I don't feel comfortable with. I guarantee this decrease is going to hurt me more than an increase in income taxes will hurt those making over $400,000. What happened? Shocker. Democrats who supported the president's re-election just had no idea that his steadfast pledge to raise taxes meant that he was really going to raise taxes. They thought he planned to just hit those filthy one-percenters, those ones who earned fortunes through their inventiveness and hard work. They thought the free ride would continue forever. Well, going on to this, of course, there are absolutely dishonest 1/10 of 1% people who manipulate and work with the government, but it's true. There are a lot of honest, hardworking, people who've worked their whole life and studied their whole life, and they're doing fairly well and paying much more than their share of income, and so are the some of the lower earners too. At this point, we're all getting hammered. So next thing, 32 days of higher gas prices coming at a tough time. Gas prices have risen for 32 days straight. This is CNN money dated February 18th, 2013. This means the average price for a gallon, blah, blah, has risen more than 13 cents. It's hitting Americans with smaller paychecks, and they're worried about looming budget, cuts and an even deeper blow. What's behind the higher prices at the pump? It's a confluence of factors from rising crude oil prices to, process and refinery closings. Right now, things are tight worldwide, and it's certainly also very much the case in Hawaii with what's happening with our refineries. Gas is gigantic for most people. Like it or not, this is a large component of our living expenses. Okay, let's go to the next one. Wells Fargo. This is according to the Hawaii Free Press, dated Monday, February 18th. Wells Fargo says Hawaii to be hardest hit by defense cuts. And, is it truly defense cuts or is it our offense cuts? I don't know which one. We'd have to see. But Hawaii seems to be that they're going to get hit hard. And, for defense, we certainly do need a valid defense here. We are in the middle of the ocean, and we are, unfortunately, in provocative moves with many nations worldwide. It would be a lot better if we would just quit provoking, and maybe we could safely lower our defense. Okay, here is something from CNBC published on 2/18, and this is why more than 8% unemployment could lie ahead. This is by Matt Cinch. And severe fiscal tightening in the U.S. will lead to no growth or a contraction in the first 2 quarters of 2013 and will push unemployment over the 8% level, according to Lombard Street Research. The knock-on effect will mean pain for the business sector, with corporate profits falling after a hit to consumer spending power, the firm said. Our view that unemployment could rise above 8% and that profits will be squeezed reflects a forecast of nil to negative 2013 fiscal growth, etc. And then we skip a little and we say at the start of the year, the payroll tax that funds the Social Security was raised 2 percentage points to 2010 level of 6.2%. This was the largest component of tax increase approved by the Congress and the Fiscal Cliff. Anyways, there's much more on this story, and I think it might be worth reading if you're interested in the employment situation on the national basis. We move on to federal employees. Union had Obama pay raise proposal simply not enough. This is the Hill. And this one is dated 209. This is a little bit old, but, they said it's not enough for the federal pay raises. And then we move to the next thing, Palmetto to propose military pay cut after Obama raised federal officials' pay. Are people on the front line really not making that much, Maybe they're not in the union. I wonder what's happening, so maybe they're getting shafted. People on the front line getting it, huh? You know, I mean, we all have to take something here, but, you know, a pay raise for one, okay, sitting in the relative comfort and safety, and then a pay cut for the others who have their life on the line and are being put to do dirty grunt work for, you know, usually illegitimate, ill-advised wars. Man, something's wrong here, okay? And we go to Political, Behind the Curtain. This is dated 2/18/13. And basically, President Barack Obama is a master at limiting, shaping, and manipulating media coverage of himself and his White House. Not for the reason the conservatives suspect, blah, 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 blah. But basically, it says he's shaping coverage, staged leaks, friendly interviews, and put them on steroids using nuance, social media, content creation, precision targeting. Please be advised, you're probably well aware of this. There's so much staged and manipulated at all levels, you know. The few honest people and politicians out there, they're the ones who aren't usually heard, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of us don't recognize and respond to that. These ones who know how to manipulate and shape are, you know, and usually not doing the people's will, are the ones who unfortunately seem to get the press and seem to get the mind share of the people, even though it's against the people's better interest in many cases. And for example, here's one of those puppet master things. Now we're going about the sequester, and Obama is going to be, and again, I didn't vote for Obama or Romney, but I would have certainly voted for Obama over Romney. But, you know, so I'm not picking on him, you know, any more than I would have certainly the other person there, because I think they're both two sides of the same coin. But this one here, after his manipulation, and he's going to come out claiming, hey, this sequesters all the Republicans, those dirty bastards, you know, they're not spending, you know, what is it, 0.1% increase, whatever, and it's going to destroy the country. I mean, we have no government waste. There's nothing we could cut at all, which we'll be getting to a story about that in a second. But basically, Bob Woodward, a very well-respected, honest journalist, one of the ones who worked on Watergate, and this is a Washington Times article, I believe, Washington Post, dated February 22nd, 2013. It says, misunderstandings, misstatements, and the classic contortions of partisan message management surround the sequester, the term for the $85 billion in ugly and largely irrational federal spending cuts set to be law on Friday. This is actually in the Hawaii Free Press locally on the Hawaii Free Press, the February 23rd edition. But basically what this is going on to, and again, you can read the details there, is that Obama's going to blame this all on the Republicans when it was actually his and his staff, chief of staff's idea. It's typical. That's what it is. You get something bad, blame it on the other person. You never did it. Let's not take any responsibility. Okay, but, you know, hey, all these cuts and all these sequesters and all the pain that's coming, you know, hey, that doesn't have to affect all of us, does it? Especially not the president and those who actually cause these issues. President finally shows his face after a $1 million golfing weekend with Tiger Woods that White House didn't want the world to see. I mean, come on, you know, he's above it all. All these people in government are above it all. You know, the union worker and the people, you know, at the cannery there, and all the people in Hawaii are, you know, going to be losing their job, and all of us struggling to make it and paying our taxes. Hey, we don't count. You know, we got to give him his golf job there. So this is published in the Mail Online on February 18th. And let's move on to some more good use of our money and really well morally done things. U.S. sends troops to Niger for drone missions. So let's go help French kill the people in their own civil war. That's great. Let's get involved with everything because we know best, and we're, you know, God's angels on earth. So, and some more good use of our money. Obama to fly over 9 hours just for a speech on immigration. This is, I think, from maybe the Weekly Standard, and this is dated in January 26th, I believe. And this is a 9-hour flight, basically costing $1.6 million to go make a speech. It cost us $1.6 million. Couldn't have done it by teleconference. Couldn't have done it in a smaller plane. Couldn't have done it with less fanfare. Something, nope, you know, just have to spend that money because, hey, the rest of us don't count. Okay, hey, what's a $20 million here and there? I mean, that's only a few thousand people fed well for a year, on the hungry, the homeless. That's a few people who are struggling to pay their taxes that could have had a little relief. No. Taxpayer bill for Obama's Hawaii vacations, $20 million. This is by Keith Koffler on January 4th, 2013, and this is in the WhiteHouseDossier.com. Hey, that 20 mil vacation, man, I'll tell you, I'll take 3 of them. I mean, what the heck? We got plenty of money in this country. Now, let's go on to a very well-established and respected magazine, and they make a very nice article here called Truth or Consequences, and this is actually November 13th, 2010. And basically it says, Obama's only real hope to be an effective president and secure his legacy, talk straight about the looming economic disaster facing the country. Okay, I'm not even going to go into the article. If you're interested, please read it. Again, it's Newsweek, dated November 13th, 2010. You can find it online. It's called Truth or Consequences. Another real story here, okay? Now, let's look at a little bit of how these things play off around the world. Sacre bleu! Damage control after France's job czar claims the country is bankrupt. Huh. There are other countries, for example, ours, that are worse than bankrupt. I mean, we're not even bankrupt. We are in gigantic debt to the tune of about $1.2 million a person. If you haven't seen that, go to one of our, I don't have the exact date in front of me, shows prior, and we show you how that's happening with the federal and state debt. Every taxpayer has $1.2 million in debt right now, and that's climbing. This is the WashingtonTimes.com, and this is dated January 29th. So anyways, that's the French are bankrupt. And maybe, and damage control. That poor bastard was being honest. Excuse my language. So he's going to have to pay the price. Now he turned to the Egyptians, turned to the black market for hard currency. Why is that? Because maybe their currency's not doing too well, because their economy's not being done too well, because they have a big mess there. Maybe like we are. This is Reuters, and this is dated February 10th. Okay, and then we go to the big story, and this is from thebigstory.ap.org. Venezuela sharply devalues its currency. Again, these are the people who keep printing money and overspending, and eventually it leads to a disaster. And that's going to happen here too, even though we are the world's reserve currency, unless, and it's possible, I'm not one of these total doomsayers. I mean, there are some options for this country. I certainly give it a strong possibility of disaster, though. I would say about a 1 in 3 chance. And then anyways, going on to if that does happen, or if it's not the total disaster, but the continuing decline of our standard of living and pain, people eating less, having more difficulty making their payments. And a bill to study alternative currency for Virginia inches forward. This is in WashingtonPost.com. And this is dated, I believe it's 1/26/2013. What's the alternative currency? If you read the Constitution, you will know that states can make their own currency. And I think that's going to be a good thing coming if we keep doing what we're doing and we fail on ours, which is a good possibility. One final note of cheer here. Sorry to be so optimistic today. China eclipses the U.S. as the biggest trading nation measured in goods. And this is on Bloomberg.com. And this
People just desperately do not want pain, and I include politicians and economists in that, of course the public as well. But really, the whole economy right around the world has been painted into a corner now. We've had cheap interest rates, artificially cheap interest rates, and consequently a great flood of new money. The choice now is either continue having a flood of new money, which you can see at the moment is the choice with QE, although they're modest quantities. Either keep having new money, and ultimately that will lead to inflation and probably accelerating inflation, or you stop accelerating the supply of new money and you take a correction. Now, neither path is painless. What I'm arguing is that those two paths are inevitable. At the moment, we're stuck in a sort of stagnation, but it won't go on forever. The banks themselves are part of an enormous monetary power in the world, which is directed by central banks. So they're very, very tightly coupled. Also, when you look at the revenues from the banking system, you can see that the banking system and inflationary money is a very important part of funding the welfare state. So they're incredibly tightly coupled. I don't actually think that's very healthy or in anybody's best interests. Yeah, well, you look at the United States, the Federal Reserve's a relatively recent innovation, and it was supposed to stabilise prices, and no sooner was it implemented than there was an enormous boom, ending in a dreadful bust, which at least prior to this one was the worst the world had ever seen. And so I don't think that central banks are actually a stabilising factor. I think they're a destabilising factor.
I find that Bernanke is the greatest counterfeiter in the history of the world. He has created new dollars out of thin air more than anybody else, and we happen to have the reserve currency of the world. So I don't see him as being a savior. He's the participant, and he is a counterfeiter. There should be a picture on Time magazine with him flying a helicopter, pushing out money. Congressman, he's known for saying that he's Helicopter Ben.
expresses, boys. The Federal Reserve is here to save you.
In 1913, the money power of the country was taken away from the people, but it was given up in the Federal Reserve Act. The Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express.
You try a hide and destroy a freedom, man. You seek agenda, we know you anti-American. You come forward American Constitution. 1913, corrupt in the system. Devalue dollar, hyperinflation. The Federal Reserve, controlled by Lucifer. He can see you lying.